Greetings, my peeps, and welcome to the All Things Basketball Podcast with your boy GD. In this episode, I'll be doing my player spotlight for Black History Month, and the first player will be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So we'll cover his high school days, his early days, of course, his time at UCLA, as well as his early years in the NBA with the Milwaukee Bucks. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Okay, guys, so we are in the month of February, which means Black History Month. So, as promised, I'm going to bring to you 4 player spotlights this month in honor of Black History Month, of course. And the first player I'm going to talk about, one of the most decorated, accomplished basketball players to ever live. I'm talking about 7'2", 225 pounds. Well, at one time he was. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and it's apropos because pretty soon it looks like LeBron is going to break his scoring record. So, yeah, important that we talk about these legends of the game. So, and Kareem was that. He was an absolute legend from high school to college to the pros, and so much he did off the court as well. We'll talk about that as well. So, let's get into it, shall we? So, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was born Ferdinand Lew Alcindor Jr. That was his birth name, and he was called, for short, Lew Alcindor. So Lew Alcindor, that's the name he started out with. So we'll go by that name until the transition comes. How about that? How about we do that? So, all right. So Lew was born April 16th, 1947, and his parents of Trinidad and Tobago descent. His mother, Cora Lillian, she was a price checker and also a seamstress, and she had a love for sports. In fact, her and Lew would watch the baseball games together. That was his passion. Baseball was, at least. And then his father, Ferdinand Lew Alcindor Sr., of course. He was a transit police officer, and he was also a jazz musician. So he loved this jazz and so forth, and we'll hear about that as we go along. So his parents moved from Trinidad and Tobago to the U.S., and it was here in the U.S. where Lew Alcindor was born. He was born in Harlem in New York City, so the upper Manhattan part of Manhattan, obviously, Harlem, New York. So he grew up in the Dyckman Street housing projects in Inwood. Inwood is a section of Manhattan that's even further up from Harlem. So Inwood is so. He was always a tall child coming up. At the age of 9 years old, he was 5'8". And then about 4 or 5 years later, he's 6'8". So, and he was always trying to reconcile his height. In other words, why is he growing so tall? And of course, with that comes the ridicule, the questions, how's the weather up there, and just teasing and gawking at him. People would do that. So he was a baseball fan, as I mentioned. He started out loving baseball, but as he continued to grow, he started to turn his attention to basketball. He first started playing with the CYO teams. That's the Catholic Youth Organization. So, And there is where he began honing his skills as a basketball player. And with his dad, they would go to jazz clubs together. And given that, at the age of 13 and 14, he was like 6'8", so his dad was able to take him to these clubs, and not too much, back in these days, they weren't exactly carding people, how they do these days with checking ID cards. He was 6'8", so it was just assumed that he was of age. So his dad would take him to the jazz clubs. He used to meet all the jazz greats. One time he met Art Blakey, who had the group. He was the founder of the Jazz Messengers. He was a drummer for them. So he met Art Blakey, met Duke Ellington, and many others as well. So Lew ends up attending Power Memorial Academy. This was a Catholic school in once again in Harlem. So he was still in the Harlem area, but going to high school there. And the basketball team was coached by Jack Donahue. And Lew began to receive national attention after appearing on the Ed Sullivan Show as a high school sophomore. So already his name started to get out there, the name of Lew Alcindor. His teams would go 95-6 during his 4 years there. They won 3 Catholic championships, and at one time his team had a 71-game winning streak. So early on, winning comes easy to Lew and his teams. So he had a close relationship with Coach Donahue until during his senior year, when Coach Donahue used the N-word to describe his play during one of his games. He's basically said to him, it seemed like he was kind of loafing out there supposedly, and then that's when Donahue said, "Hey, step your game up because you're playing like an N." So that kind of soured their relationship after that. Nonetheless, Lew persevered, of course. As a senior, he became one of the most sought after and celebrated college recruits ever. In fact, he ended up his 4 years with the New York City scoring record, and he scored over 2,000 points as a high school ball player. So as the colleges came hot and heavy after him, all colleges and universities from across the country, he in fact refused to go to any school that was in the South. Now you gotta think this is like the late 60s that he'll be in the South there, and he didn't want any dealings with that kind of racial strife, especially with him there playing basketball, concentrating on his grades and so forth. So he want no parts of that. And also initially, many critics, believe it or not, he had critics back then, felt that he wouldn't be much of a center. He was too finesse. That was their criticism of him. They said he probably wouldn't be able to take the pounding, so forth. So, because he was tall, but he was lanky. So they didn't think he'll be have any success as a center. Lo and behold, how wrong they were. So in visiting colleges, he visited UCLA, and he enjoyed the California atmosphere. And he also liked Coach John Wooden's humble and reserved demeanor. It pretty much reminded him of his father, that kind of, just soft spoken, but when they spoke, it was powerful. So that was Coach Wooden's effect on him early on. That's what he took from it, as well as Coach Wooden's focus on winning as a team. So all that correlated for Lew. So, and also he received a letter from Jackie Robinson, a UCLA alum and his baseball idol, who pretty much encouraged him in the letter to attend UCLA, where academics is, of course, important, as well as your athletics. So academics and athletics. So pretty much with that, with the emphasis on winning and academics, which piqued Lew's interest, he chose UCLA. So all of that pretty much sold him on UCLA. So UCLA is where he attended. Now, due to collegiate rules at the time, he couldn't play on the varsity teams as a freshman. That was pretty much the rule throughout college. Took some years for that to change. So he made his first ever appearance with the freshman team, actually, which included Lucius Allen, Lynn Shackelford, and Kenny Heights. And in a freshman varsity exhibition game, the freshmen actually beat the two-time NCAA champs in a exhibition game, 75-60. And in that game, Lew Alcindor, he just scored 31 points and had pulled down 21 rebounds. So already out the gate, Lew Alcindor's making it known there's a new sheriff in town, basically. So, and then the news writers in that area called the UCLA's varsity team the second best team in town. Of course, poking fun at the fact that the freshman team beat them. So Lew's freshman team, they went 21-0 for the season, and he averaged over 33 points per game and 21.5 rebounds in those 21 games. So already Alcindor is making an impact, even on the freshman team. So he made his official debut as a sophomore and under the national spotlight in his first game. In his first game, guys, he scores 56 points, thus breaking Gail Goodrich's record of 42 points. So right out the gate, he makes an impression. Lew Alcindor does. So he finished his sophomore year 30-0. Won championship that they won against Dayton. Dayton and their star player there was Don May. And in that game, Kareem scored 20 points along with 18 rebounds. He shot at 66.7% from the field in that game. And he also got the NCAA's most outstanding player for the tournament. So his average for that season was 29 points and 15.5 rebounds. So Alcindor's college career is off to a rousing start. In fact, if you combine the first 2 years, he's 51-0. So outstanding start. For someone, remember, he had all the glare, all the spotlight is on him. So for him to accomplish that, that's really something. So that says a lot. So the following season, the NCAA outlawed the dunk shot. a rule which they rescinded 10 years later. But so they outlawed the dunk shot, you know, in light of the fact that, you know, Alcindor came in there and he was dominating. So I guess to slow him down a bit, they installed this rule in place. But that only helped in developing his patented highest skyhook under the tutelage of Coach Wooden. So what you tried to take away from him, you actually helped his game because he developed other aspects of his game. So there you go with that. Also, let it be noted that in the spring of 1967, while he was a student at UCLA, he was part of that great summit of athletes who supported Muhammad Ali's boycott of the Summer Olympics, which was to take place in 1968. So in 1967, the great summit, we all know about it. There was football player Jim Brown also there. The legendary Bill Russell, he was in tow as well. Many other athletes there. So Lew Alcindor already out there for, you know, taking a stand for social justice. So something he learned very early on. Actually, while he was at Power Memorial, he was part of a program where they developed, you know, young black leaders. So he was part of that program. So, you know, he carries all this with him to UCLA. So you see it here as he goes there and represent for Muhammad Ali. So his junior year, he goes 29-1, and the one loss came in what was deemed the game of the century versus the Houston Cougars, University of Houston, and that game was played at the Astrodome on January 20th, 1968, and with an attendance of over 52,000 people in attendance there to watch that game, and to watch them lose 71-69. Now in that game, they were led by Elvin Hayes. Elvin Hayes was a terror back in his college days. I'll do a player spotlight on him in the near future. But he had 39 points and 15 rebounds. Lew Alcindor only had 15 points. And what happened was, prior to this game, about a week before, he suffered a scratched cornea. His eyeball got scratched, and that happened January 12th versus Cal. So he actually missed 2 games before playing in that game of the century. So like I said, he scores 15 points in the game. Pretty good considering the conditions, you know, he was dealing with at the time. So, and that loss really stuck with Alcindor, so much so that he promised if they were to have a rematch with them, he would be ready for it. Let me give you his numbers for the season. 26.2 points per game, along with 16.5 rebounds, and he shot it 61.3% from the field on the year. So, and going into the NCAA tournament, once again they come out victorious, and they actually was able to avenge the loss to Houston in the Final Four, where they just ran them off the floor, guys. 101-69. In that game, Lew Alcindor 19 points and 18 rebounds. So he was able to redeem himself on that day. And the team gets the win. And then from that Final Four, they win the championship. So, and they actually beat Charlie Scott's North Carolina Tar Heels. And they won that game 78-55, where Lew Alcindor scored 34 points and 16 rebounds. And he shot at over a whopping 71% from the field in that game. So Alcindor gets his revenge, and he gets his championship. So this championship number 2, guys. So we have the next season, and then a few things that take place. In spring of 1968, in around mid-April, he becomes one of the activists and organizers of the protests on UCLA's campus, and that was following the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. So on the campus, he organized that protests on the campus. So once again, his leadership skills that he developed in Power Memorial carries with him to UCLA. So, and then in summer of that same year, he converted from Catholicism to Sunni Islam, and he adopted the name Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, with the name, and it means the noble one, servant of the Almighty. So he has the name here. He doesn't fully use the name until a few years later in the NBA. We'll get to that. So, but also that summer, he boycotted the 1968 Summer Olympics in protest of the unequal treatment of African Americans in the U.S. So he too, like Muhammad Ali, he protested the Summer Olympics, and he basically said he was trying to point out to the world the futility in winning the gold medal for this country and then coming back to live under oppression. So fully aware of what's going on in the world, he makes his stand. So he ends up staying the full 4 years, and staying for the full 4 years, he earned a Bachelors of Arts, majoring in history. So, and also during his time at UCLA, he practiced martial arts, Aikido and Jeet Kune Do. He actually practiced Jeet Kune Do for 4 years under the famous Bruce Lee. So he went to that school that Bruce Lee formed when he was in California, and that's where he studied the martial arts there. So, which I'll talk about that a little later. So his senior year on the court, he goes again 29-1. His sole loss is to UCLA, who actually held the ball, and this was prior to the shot clock, guys. So they held the ball, limiting Alcindor to just 10 points on 4 shots. So they pretty much played keep away ball and ended up winning the game. Alcindor's average, 24 points, 14.7 rebounds. And yet another championship. This time they beat Rick Mount and his Purdue Boilermakers, 92-72. Rick Mount was the prize player there. And in his last game as a collegiate, this is what he does. 37 points, 20 rebounds, 75% shooting from the field. He was 15 or 20 from the field. So Lew Alcindor finishing his career on a strong high note there. So let's look at his career numbers with UCLA. He played in 88 of 90 games. He only missed the 2 games because of the scratch cornea. 3-time regular season champs of their division, which was the Athletic Association of Western Universities. 3 times he made it to the NCAA tournament. 3 times he won the championship. So you're talking about sensational college career. So for his full time during his run at UCLA, he goes 88 and 2. 88 and 2. So, and if you include his freshman year, it's even beyond that. So, but we'll talk just varsity for the moment. So, 88 and 2 he goes. So, in his career numbers, let's look at that. 26.4 points per game, 15.5 rebounds, nearly 64% from the field. He has the most field goals in a season. In a career. 943. That's tied with Don McLean. He has the most points in a season. 870. The highest scoring average in the season, 29 points per game. Most field goals in the season, he's among the top 3 actually. As a sophomore, he had 346. As a senior, 303, and then as a junior, 294. Most foul free throw attempts, 272. So he has that record. Most points scored in a game, 61. He had a 61-point game. And most field goals in a game, 26. So you talk about some outstanding numbers here. He's in the top 10 in just about every statistical category. He is second in rebounds to Bill Walton. So Bill Walton comes along, and also 3 years for him, and he pulls more rebounds. So, all right. So that is Lew Alcindor's college career. Coming out of college, he was offered $1 million by the Harlem Globetrotters, but he turned that down to enter the 1969 NBA draft. And then his entering the NBA comes right on the heels of Bill Russell retiring from playing, and also Wilt Chamberlain getting along in his years. He was still a force, though. Make no mistake about that, but he was nothing like the dominant figure of the 60s, throughout the 60s, basically. So a coin flip for number 1 came down to the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. But as we know, the toss was won by the Milwaukee Bucks, and as they say, the rest is history. Oh, by the way, the Bucks were in their 2nd year of existence when they were awarded the top pick in the draft. So chosen number 1 by the Milwaukee Bucks, Lew Alcindor gets drafted. He was also drafted in the ABA, because remember, they had the 2 leagues going at the same time, both the NBA and the ABA. And he was taken number 1 by the New York Nets. So can you imagine he chose the ABA over the NBA, it'd be a whole different history written. In fact, the New York Nets thought that he would choose playing for them since, he's from New York, so that would be just fitting for him. But he rejected the New York Nets' initial offer. He thought it was very low. And he went instead for Milwaukee's offer of $1.4 million, which, at the time was considered a lot. And then the thing was, the New York Nets, they come back with a $3.25 million offer, guaranteed, by the way, and Lew Alcindor declines that. And he actually gave his thoughts on what took place. And here's what he said. A bidding war degrades the people involved. It would make me feel like a flesh peddler, and I don't want to think like that. So Alcindor pretty much didn't like the idea of that. So he just went with the basketball team that drafted him from the NBA, which is the Bucks. So, all right, so he enters the NBA. His impact as a rookie was immediate. In fact, he had a game as a rookie, 51 points against these Seattle Supersonics, along with 18 rebounds as well. No, that was in playoffs, I'm sorry. So, let's talk about their record. Under Coach Larry Costello, the team in his first year went from 27-55 to 56-26. So needless to say, immediate impact. They were second place in the Eastern Division, and this is what he did. 28.8 points per game. That was second in the league. He played in all 82 games. He shot at 51.8% from the field, 65.3% from free throw line. He grabbed 14.5 rebounds. That was third in the league. And he was named All-NBA second team. So, right from the start, impact. Oh, by the way, he when he played in the playoffs, he had an average of 18 points and 25 rebounds. And he's the second player since Wilt Chamberlain to have that kind of average in the playoffs. Oh, as a rookie, by the way, he gets Rookie of the Year as well. So already his career off to a rousing start. In his second year, the Milwaukee Bucks traded for Oscar Robertson. Their feeling was, yeah, we're going to need to pair him with somebody and see what he can do there. So in that second season, they go 66-16, including winning 20 straight games. They end up first in the Midwest, so they realigned the divisions that year. So now the Milwaukee Bucks are in the Midwest, and they finish first. And they end up winning their first championship. So already, Alcindor's second season, NBA championship. And they do that by sweeping the Baltimore Bullets. He's named the Finals MVP, where he averaged 27 points, 18.5 rebounds, over 60% from the field he shot, as well as 76% from the free throw line. So, talk about coming through in the clutch. So, And this is what he did for the season. 31.7 points. That led the NBA. 16 rebounds. That was fourth in the league. 57.7% from the field. That was second in the league. He wins his first MVP of the league, plays in all 82 games, and he's named All NBA First Team. Oh, by the way, and he made the most field goals with 163. So already off to an outstanding start. In the summer of 1971, him, Oscar Robertson, and Coach Larry Costello embarked on a 3-week tour of Africa that was sanctioned by the State Department. And in a press conference, that's where he announced his full conversion to Islam and officially changing his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So he took the international stage to make this announcement. So, of course, there were major questions from the media, from those close to him, about his conversion to Islam. So, but he's held to it, and that's what resulted from it. So from here on in, he's known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So following his championship season, he continued to dominate the league. His team went 63-19. That was first in the Midwest, but they did lose to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, 4-2. The mighty Lakers, who at the time had Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Gail Goodrich, Jim McMillan, and a guy on their bench, you might have heard of him, named Pat Riley. Instrumental, as we'll talk about later. So Kareem, what he does for his third season, he just scores a career high 34.8 points per game, first in the league. So back to back, he leads the league in scoring, 16.6 rebounds, that's third in the league. 57.4% from the field, that's second in the league. And he also dishes out 4.6 assists. And he was first in field goals made with 1,151. So he was named All NBA First Team. And here's what those had to say about him. Not with the brute force of a Wilt Chamberlain or Willis Reed, he was more finesse and skill. So that was the prevailing thought on Kareem at the time. So in 1972-73, his team goes 60-22, first in the Midwest. They would lose in the Western Conference semifinals to the Golden State Warriors, 4-2. And that Warriors team had the likes of Rick Barry, Nate Thurman, Cazzie Russell, and Jeff Mullins. So some mighty teams back there then, guys. Here's what he did on the season. 30.2 points per game. That was second to Tiny Archibald. Over 16 rebounds. That was fourth in the league. 55.4% from the field. That was third in the league. He was NBA first team. But the MVP that year actually went to David Cowens of Boston. And he was actually named All NBA second team. So check this out. Kareem named All NBA first team, but yet he lost the MVP. To Dave Cowens, who was a center but on the All NBA second team. I thought that was pretty interesting. So then 1973-74 season, he which ends up being Oscar's final season there with the Bucks. 59-23 they go, also first in the Midwest division. They lost in the NBA Finals though, and they actually had the home court advantage. And they lost that to the Boston Celtics 4-3. They lost to Boston, who had Dave Cowens at the time, as well as John Havlicek, JoJo White, and Paul Silas. So they lost to those Celtics. Here's what he did on the season. 27 points per game. That was third in the league, third to Bob McAdoo and Pete Maravich. He was first in field goals made with 948. 14.5 rebounds. That was fourth in the league. Nearly 54% from the field. That was second to McAdoo. And this was the first year where they recorded steals and blocks, guys. So Kareem would average 3.5 blocks per game. That was second in the league behind Elmore Smith. So he does win his third MVP. And he is named All NBA First Team. So already out the gate, guys. He already has 5 seasons under his belt, and he has 3 MVPs. So, an outstanding start indeed. Following Oscar's retirement after not agreeing to resign with the Milwaukee Bucks, Kareem would privately ask for a trade. He was pretty much happy with the Midwest lifestyle, not fitting his new spiritual and cultural lifestyle. So, and he wanted a trade to either the Knicks, the Washington Bullets, or the Los Angeles Lakers. So those were the 3 teams he was looking at. Then comes the preseason of 1974-75. He suffered yet another cornea scratch, so his eyeball gets scratched again. This time it was against Boston, and actually Don Nelson was the person who did it. And this angered him so much that he punched the backboard stand and broke a couple of bones in his hand. So Kareem upset about once again getting his cornea scratched, and he ends up missing the first 16 games of the season, of the 1974-75 season. So, and in those 16 games, the team goes 3-13. So obviously missing their star player, that's for sure. He makes his season debut November 23rd, 1974, donning goggles to protect his eyes, which he does for the very first time. So his team, with him coming back there, they went 35-31, but overall they were 38-44, and they were last in the Midwest Division. So this is Kareem's first year where his team finished under 500. So, we can attribute that to his missing the first few games, of course, putting them in a hole. So there's that. For the season, he averaged 30 points per game, which was third in the league. 14 rebounds, that was fifth in the league. And 51.3%, which was fourth in the league. He was named to the all defensive team, So he made that. So, and then in March of 1975, within that season, Marv Albert, a play-by-play man for the New York Knicks, leaked a trade request that he made. But this time he has narrowed it down to either the Knicks or the Los Angeles Lakers. A day later, Kareem would confirm what Marv put out there, following a loss, ironically enough, to the Lakers, 105-104, in a game that he scored 29 points, 17 rebounds, and 5 block shots. So, and then in that off season, following the 1974-75 season, he was indeed traded. At the time, the GM was Wayne Embry. He trades Kareem to the Lakers, along with backup center Walt Wesley, in exchange for center Elmore Smith, guard Brian Winters, a couple of rookies, Junior Bridgman and Dave Myers, along with cash. So Kareem gets his wish, and he goes out west, so to the Lakers. So, guys, I'm going to cut it off here. So what we'll have left is his years with the Lakers, and then we'll talk post basketball career, all the accomplishments, all the accolades, and so forth. So I'm going to cut it off here, guys, and then in the next episode we will continue our spotlight on the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So once again, guys, I invite you, if you listen on the website, please leave a review there. If you're on my YouTube page, leave your comments there as well. So, guys, I will be back with you to bring you the rest of my player spotlight on the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So, until then, take care, guys, and we'll talk soon.